all of a sudden, there I was, enjoying the water for the first time in my life. And it was all because of one thing: technology. Usually when someone asks me where I live, I have a hard time answering that question. I'm always on the road, pretty much living out of my suitcase, and I make documentaries, which happen to be a medium that comes from technology. Because my family and career were centered around the death and injuries from a particular technology, I saw technology as something that was inherently evil. If we could just run away from it and hide out and avoid it, humanity would be better off. Recently, I was on a trip in Mexico with a friend of mine who has visual impairments. Being with somebody and watching their quality of life being drastically changed by technology is mind-blowing. And so after 23 years, my perspective was changed, even though it was deeply ingrained in me. So why did I hate technology so much?
I probably did raise y'all kind of to be very wary of technology. Jamie definitely supported me in it. He didn't have any of those things because he lived so far out in the country. And he knew the kind of childhood that he led, camping on the creek with his friends, riding four-wheelers, hunting, spending time out in the woods. He knew how that life was for him and how much he enjoyed it. And he definitely saw the value in trying to preserve that for y'all too.
For us, this meant a life full of nature. Chickens, a horse, homeschool, building, exploring the woods, canoeing, swimming, so much time just existing in the open forest. Digital entertainment was a very small part of our lives and limited to family activities.
When we decided to take Chandler's video games away, it's because he became increasingly aggressive. We're having a bonfire, and it was about 5 of them, and I heard the sound of cattle going upstairs, and they were like, "Yeah, bro, what?" And they were all running upstairs to come play video games. It's like it just took over their lives, and that's when I was like, no, I don't want it anymore in my house. And I watched Chandler be depressed and moody for 3 days when we took it away. It was an addiction. I remember going to my parents' house, and all 4 of them were in different rooms, which is no different, I guess, than us being on our phones, watching the TV. Where before, you may have been watching TV, but you were watching it together. What I saw was that everybody was starting to lead such disconnected lives. It was beginning to take place of just normal interaction. We are not living a life the way that God intended us to live. Satan is the leader of this world. So I think inherently all of those things were kind of, evil to me.
I was involved in the vaccine freedom movement since I was 15 years old in 2016.
After graduating high school,
I was in an art program at a small liberal arts college in Mississippi. And after a year there, I left and found a mentor in New Orleans. Shortly after, I got asked to work on Vax 2. And this documentary was basically a compilation of thousands of people who had been injured by vaccines. I heard horrendous stories of real pain and death caused by vaccines, which are technology. And so
I was very consumed by the topic, and even though I think it was necessary, it took a toll on me. And after I'd done a bunch of projects like that and a few others, through time I just began to burn out further and further, and my culprit that I had chosen was technology itself. I interviewed Joe Allen and Patrick Wood, and I want you to see what I saw. And I want you to go through what I went through, because I don't think this is Joe and Patrick's intention, but because of the nature of being human, my fear was activated. This is where everything I had feared about technology was wrapped up into this concept
that I had never heard of before. And it's called transhumanism.
Transhumanism is simply the quest to merge human beings with their machines to become something more than human. 20 years ago, transhumanism was a sort of fringy, freakish ideology that only a very few people were contemplating. And now you have everyone from the World Economic Forum to Silicon Valley, prominent thinkers at Harvard, at Oxford, at Cambridge, MIT, University of Washington. A number of public figures, political figures are kind of hinting at it. You see that this idea that technology can and should be used to enhance and transform the human being, whether it's called transhumanism or not, has become profoundly influential among our leaders and among the people.
Now we are basically like a species of ants. We live in a huge, huge colony in which each one has this tiny role to play, and we cannot survive outside the colony. And this will only increase in the 21st century, brain-computer interfaces and biometric sensors and so forth.
And so we will be a hybrid of biological thinking and non-biological thinking, which I believe has already started with these devices outside our body.
We're already a cyborg.
A built-in personal assistant could be implanted right into your brain.
Ultimately, we're going to merge with artificial intelligence and connect our neocortex, that's the outer layer of the brain, that's where we do our thinking, to the cloud.
It is very likely that within, say, 50 years, all the bodies, all the brains would be connected together to a network.
The Internet of Bodies.
And you won't be able to survive if you're disconnected from the net.
But the moment we admit that some appropriate computational system is what the basis of intelligence is, and we admit that we will improve these systems continuously, and we admit that the horizon of cognition very likely far exceeds what we currently know, then we have to admit that we're in the process of building some sort of God. Now would be a good time to make sure it's a God we can live with.
Technologies like vaccine passports, social credit systems, and job automation have the potential to undermine our privacy, freedom, and autonomy. In the wrong hands, technology can be used to control, manipulate, and exploit people.
Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds. The IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud, these are the new driving forces of evolution.
Something I realized along the way is that I didn't hate science. I hated scientism. In that same way, I identify as a non-denominational Christian who reads the Bible, because I have seen how religions have been abused throughout history. Transhumanism is often driven by a belief in the power of science and technology to solve all of our problems. This is scientism.
Father of scientism was a French philosopher that lived back in around 1800. He said, "A scientist, my dear friends, is a man who foresees. It is because science provides the means to predict that it is useful, and the scientists are superior to all other men." What he said. He wanted to get rid of the Catholic Church and replace the priests with science and engineers and have them administer science to society, because that was far more beneficial, he said, than religion.
It's very dangerous, Chuck, because a lot of what you're seeing as attacks on me, quite frankly, are attacks on science.
Having grown up in a highly controlled religious organization, the same, governing body leaders of that organization saying, when you speak out against me, you're not speaking out against me, you're speaking out against the word of God. And thinking even further back to when not all humans could read and write, and they were relying on religious officials to interpret the word of God. They used it to control people and misinterpreting the word of God. And so kind of the parallels between that and what we're seeing with science the same way.
By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself.
And if we are not careful, it can lead to a form of government where experts and technocrats hold all of the power, and where ordinary people have no say.
Is there technology in China that can help the Chinese people? Yes, there is. But it has been turned on them slowly over a period of time, incrementally, where now it's controlling them. They're a technocratic state through and through. They've got cameras everywhere, facial recognition. They've got social credit scoring systems in place. If you jaywalk, pictures taken of you, the fine is taken out of your bank account by the time you get back to your home or apartment. Your social credit score goes down, so maybe you get kicked out of the apartment you're living in because you don't deserve that apartment, they decide. This is micromanagement of people. I haven't read any stories anywhere, honestly, where one single person in China thinks that's all a good idea.
And in a post-COVID world, we've seen technology be taken advantage of. In Canada, for example, Prime Minister Trudeau's response to the trucker protests was genuinely concerning.
And it's amazing to see 50 miles of semi-trucks demanding change of the government. But the Trudeau government wanted to break up the protests. They said, we're going to shut your bank accounts down if you're involved in the protest, or if you're writing about the protest, we're going to shut your bank accounts down.
If your truck is being used in these protests, your corporate accounts will be frozen.
It didn't work out well for the government. In the process, nevertheless, they demonstrated that they could do that.
There are three downsides that I see. So the first downside is the over-reliance on technology so that the human being's capacities are atrophied. And if you don't have cultural norms in place to be able to continually discipline oneself and cultivate virtue alongside technology, then the technology tends to creep in and overtakes those capacities for discipline and virtue. The second, really powerful technologies in the hands of bad actors or in the hands of unwise actors, they give human beings the opportunity to wreak far more havoc than has ever been possible in human history. Everything from nuclear warheads to the engineering of bioweapons, or just the wrong-headed use of technology so that it's deployed recklessly. And you wind up with a lot of downsides, a lot of unintended consequences that everyone basically is stuck with because a technology has become ubiquitous and it's been pushed as a norm for everyone. Vaccines and medication in general can tend to be on that wavelength so that without taking into account everyone's individual needs, you end up with a sort of one-size-fits-all program that can really, really damage people for whom those technologies are not meant for.
When looking to the future, we have to ask ourselves, who will control these technologies? Who will have access to them, and who will be left behind?
And so if you want to go that direction, then all of these upsides are just simply stepping stones to a better and better future. If you don't want to go that direction, then it becomes a very difficult prospect to figure out how you can take and employ properly these technologies for your benefit without being swept up in this sort of cultural revolution that is really occurring that positions technology as the highest power on earth.
So yes, I understand what you're feeling. It's what I felt for a very long time. It's scary. I know that it's scary, but we can't reject technology. Technology is the innocent party. It is the abuse of it. And if, as those who want to control us, increase their technologies, and we do not participate in using more advanced technologies, we will be left behind. I actually collaborated with ChatGPT, an artificial intelligence chatbot, to write the script that you are watching right now. What I've been doing with documentary filmmaking is defensive transhumanism. I am using digital media to fight back against propaganda and censorship. If a technocracy is not the world that I want, then I want to use the same tools that they are using to fight back. This generation wants to hide out in the woods. I think they'll be all right, but for me, a 23-year-old, I've got a long life to live, hopefully. And one day I'll have kids, and they're going to have to deal with the world that they were born into. And I refuse to reject technology so that they are crippled in this future that technology brings.
You need some sort of rule of discernment to figure out the good technology from the bad technology.
I should do an episode about this.
I'm cool with rejecting gene editing, like CRISPR stuff and mRNA technology. I'm cool with that. But, what about all these other good things that we're rejecting that come along with that?
Like, let's say, for instance, I need, maybe my heart is damaged and I need a heart transplant. Am I going to say, oh, that's technology, I don't want a heart transplant? Sure. No, I'm going to say, if you can do that, let's do it. This is a benefit to humanity when it serves us individually. If you sense that technology is being used to control you, dig your heels in the sand and don't do it. So I'm not going to allow technology to be used to control me.
I think that it comes down to where you draw the line between technology and transhumanism. Through talking with Jim, I started asking myself, is technology inherently transhuman? If all technology is extending the abilities of the human body and mind, isn't flying in a plane or driving a car or having hearing aids or an organ transplant or any of these things all transhumanism? The human story is one of constant evolution and adaptation. From the earliest tools to the most advanced technologies, we have always found new ways to extend our abilities and improve our lives. Transhumanism is simply the latest chapter in this long and ongoing story.
It's undeniable that human beings have always used medicines, and that the advancements of certain medicines, everything from antibiotics to certain vaccines, I think that if someone has a severe disorder, gene therapies can be implemented. Robotics and automation, really some of the most luxuriant abundance that the human race have been able to enjoy. Computer technology, information technology. People have been able to learn more and verify more information now than they ever have in human history, right? Or at least more easily, more readily.
Smartphone, social media, put in everybody's hands in the world a relatively inexpensive computer, which gave them access to the internet, which is the collected world's knowledge.
And in the case of artificial intelligence, if it's used properly, it allows the user to absorb far more data than they would have been able to otherwise, to make sense of that data with a clarity they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. And in that sense, it does offer the opportunity of getting closer and closer to scientific truth.
The possibilities are endless, and I think people have never been able to express themselves as fully as they are now using technology. So when I watched the second Avatar movie, which the left is screaming is blueface and the right is saying that it's pushing propaganda for reparations and climate change, I decided to watch it because it was a film that took $300 million to make and is the most advanced animation the world has ever seen. That was a turning point for me, and I know it might sound crazy because it's just a movie, right? But it's more than that. It's a testament to just how much humans can do, to the worlds that we can create with technology. And I feel inspired to keep that torch lit.
Zola uniporte makiri ngati wal munye sowayane liesioe atanu pahem parulti ongo kauta launo ametela.
Whoa.
was thinking of experiencing the ocean without fear for the first time in my life. I always had a fear of the ocean and deep water, rightfully so, but because there is a technology that I trust that allows me to breathe underwater and become one with the ocean, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with God's creation because of technology. I mark that one as a win. And so transhumanism comes with a lot of perils, but it also comes with a lot of promises. And I see it as the way into the future. Even though it's scary, I have to acknowledge that what is coming is beyond human.
Last question, I swear.
Mhm.
How's your puppy doing?
Oh, she's doing wonderful. She's right here.
Oh, really? Oh.
Hello.
Thank you so much for everything. Take care.
Thank
Good
you,
to see
Claire.
you through the metaverse.
Cyborg.
Bye. All right. We're ready to go. Hi, you guys.
right.
I'm Claire Dooley.
I'm Naomi Wolf. Well, let's just jump right in. Claire, thank you so much for that powerful documentary, that exploration. There we go. And let's just go ahead and
Looks like Naomi has a bad connection, you guys. Stand by. I'm just gonna clip this back on for a little bit.
again.
And all of a sudden, there I was, enjoying the water for the first time in my life. And it was all because of one thing: technology. Usually when someone asks me where I live, I have a hard time answering that question. I'm always on the road, pretty much living out of my suitcase, and I make documentaries, which happen to be a medium that comes from technology. Because my family and career were centered around the death and injuries from a particular technology, I saw technology as something that was inherently evil. If we could just run away from it and hide out and avoid it, humanity would be better off. Recently, I was on a trip in Mexico with a friend of mine who has visual impairments. Being with somebody and watching their quality of life being drastically changed by technology is mind-blowing. And so after 23 years, my perspective was changed, even though it was deeply ingrained in me. So why did I hate technology so much?
I probably did raise y'all kind of to be very wary of technology. Jamie definitely supported me in it. He didn't have any of those things because he lived so far out in the country. And he knew the kind of childhood that he led, camping on the creek with his friends, riding four-wheelers, hunting, spending time out in the woods. He knew how that life was for him and how much he enjoyed it. And he definitely saw the value in trying to preserve that for y'all too.
For us, this meant a life full of nature. Chickens, a horse, homeschool, building, exploring the woods, canoeing, swimming, so much time just existing in the open forest. Digital entertainment was a very small part of our lives and limited to family activities.
When we decided to take Chandler's video games away, it's because he became increasingly aggressive. We're having a bonfire, and it was about 5 of them, and I heard the sound of cattle going upstairs, and they were like, yeah, bro, look, what? And they were all running upstairs to come play video games. It's like it just took over their lives, and that's when I was like, no, I don't want it anymore in my house. And I watched Chandler be depressed and moody for 3 days when we took it away. It was an addiction. I remember going to my parents' house, and all 4 of them were in different rooms, which is no different, I guess, than us being on our phones, watching the TV. Where before, you may have been watching TV, but you were watching it together. What I saw was that everybody was starting to lead such disconnected lives. It was beginning to take place of just normal interaction. We are not living a life the way that God intended us to live. Satan is the leader of this world. So I think inherently all of those things were kind of, evil to me.
I was involved in the vaccine freedom movement since I was 15 years old in 2016.
After graduating high school,
I was in an art program at a small liberal arts college in Mississippi. And after a year there, I left and found a mentor in New Orleans. Shortly after, I got asked to work on Vax 2. And this documentary was basically a compilation of thousands of people who had been injured by vaccines. I heard horrendous stories of real pain and death caused by vaccines, which are technology. And so
I was very consumed by the topic, and even though I think it was necessary, it took a toll on me. And after I'd done a bunch of projects like that and a few others, through time I just began to burn out further and further, and my culprit that I had chosen was technology itself. I interviewed Joe Allen and Patrick Wood, and I want you to see what I saw. And I want you to go through what I went through, because I don't think this is Joe and Patrick's intention, but because of the nature of being human, my fear was activated. This is where everything I had feared about technology was wrapped up into this concept that I had never heard of before. And it's called transhumanism.
Transhumanism is simply the quest to merge human beings with their machines to become something more.
Okay, you guys, we
All right.
finished it once, and we just let it play for another half for technical issues, but let's see if we can join back in on here together.
Okay, looks like I'm in. Looks like we're live. Hey again, everyone. So when I was interrupted by technology for its own nefarious reasons, because I'm less bullish about it than you are, Claire.
How ironic.
I guess you have mixed feelings about it. I was wanting you to talk about what it is about this subject that drew you, and forgive me if you address that in my hiatus off camera.
No, so I think it was a big theme in my life right now at this time, because I always grew up, very hesitant towards technology, which I talk about in the piece. And, but to the point where, it's horrible, because it's like hating a guitar, but it's the only thing you can play that you can express yourself with. So, that's a big struggle whenever you're an artist, and an artist is your purpose. And so I feel like making this piece was very empowering for me in many ways, because I was finally able to say, like, look, I get it. There are some really bad things about technology, but this is the only thing that I believe God, gave me a gift in this life to create films, and I'm going to do that. And I love digital media, and I love doing what I do. So yeah, I think embracing the good parts and the bad parts of technology.
So, I mean, this raises a really interesting kind of inflection point, because I would say, I totally agree with you about technology. Technology can be very empowering, but really the subject is transhumanism. And that's kind of many steps further than technology. So do you feel like there might be a risk of you kind of conflating the two, or of us conflating the two, that we embrace technology so much that we kind of blur into transhumanism? And I have to say a little bit, the ending was kind of a surprise ending for me. I hadn't seen it before. You actually seemed ready for transhumanism at the end. Am I overreading that, or did you change your mind about transhumanism? Are you really okay with that? Because I'll just be honest, I'm completely terrified and freaked out about transhumanism.
I think for me, the definition of transhumanism changed throughout the creation of the piece, because I think that the definition has not been fully described in a way. I think one side over romanticizes it, and one side creates so much fear around it that no one even wants to approach the idea. Whereas I think in the piece, I was more exploring in many ways too the definition of transhumanism, and I discussed that towards the end, how, okay, well, where do you draw the line with what's transhuman, or what, some people who are afraid of technology would call transhumanism, but it's really just technology itself and the advancement of technologies, because I believe that all technology has always been inherently transhuman, right? Like, if you have a knife, it will replace maybe what would have been a claw or something like that evolutionarily. So I think whenever you change the way you're looking at what transhumanism is, that makes a big difference. However, I would say that whenever it comes to, completely changing the human being and the human genome, I think that's where I would draw those lines, right? Or I was talking the other day with someone, and they said that as long as it's not inside me, and as long as you know where the off switch is, I'm cool with it, right? So these are just themes that we have to be exploring. And I think some people are naturally more afraid of certain technologies, as I illustrated, but some people are more embracing, aka the young people, because we grew up with technology.
So do you think there's anything, I mean, when you were quoting your friend, and that's really interesting, who said, as long as it's not inside of me and I know where the off switch is, that sounds reassuring. But then there are things like, maybe not Neuralink, but, there are applications that could beam toward humans in ways that change their thought patterns, for example, or I guess what I'm trying to say is, or the Internet of Things, right, which is going to turn our whole built environment into kind of surveillance objects. And then there are things in like so many applications, like implants that surveil, your bloodstream, or, deliver medicine, are going to be inside of us, right? But they're going to be presented as medications, or as, like health-oriented interventions. I guess what I'm asking is, I can imagine a lot of ways that technology would interfere with, and especially like brainwave oriented technologies, right? Interfere with human free will, human thought patterns. And to me, that would be beyond the pale, even if it's not inside a body. Do you in your generation, or maybe you should just speak for yourself if it's too much for me to ask you to speak for your generation, do you guys feel like there's something innately, like an innate boundary around the human that is sacred, or, which is how we learned humanism, my generation, right? And, from the Renaissance, or is that idea passé? Is that no longer something that has a sanctity to people, your age, who are engaging with technology and its changes? around the body?
I think that one really is an individual basis, and really, like, especially among young people, there's no common consensus. And some people, like, I have a friend who's my age, and I was talking to her the other day, and she was like, yeah, if you could give me an AI brain sleeve, like, I would do that, because all these ways that I used to lack, I would no longer lack.
Wow. What's a brain sleeve? I've never even heard of that.
It's like it's what Elon Musk talks about, which some people, obviously, people have different opinions on Elon Musk. I just don't really have an opinion on it at all. I just watch his things and think, wonder what he's talking about. And he basically talked about how if we don't want AI to become something that takes over humanity, that humans should merge with AI so that we can always have control over it. And that's something he talks about, as an integration in your brain with an AI as an engine, essentially. But she was saying, yeah, I would do that. Absolutely. So I think
why would she be so comfortable letting her brain be interfered with? That seems so scary to me.
Because I think she has once again, it doesn't feel as scary to us, I guess, because
I know, I'm just trying to understand why not.
Have always been a cyborg.
Right.
The idea of like most of us can't live without our phones.
Right.
And so, the idea is basically just like, oh, it's just, I'm not going to hold it in my hand anymore. I just have direct access to my brain. So it's a part of life that we grew up with, whereas other people never had that. And to be honest, like, if I think that there was a decentralized way to do that, where you could guarantee that it was in your control, I would be interested in things like that. But I think that's what we're seeing is, like, say even the computer that we're on right now, the way we're talking right now, would have seemed absolutely insane and an invasion of privacy to even just be talking on a phone, across the country, or to see people face to face internationally. Like, these are concepts that would have blown someone's mind. And so I think as technology exponentially increases, what we see is it changes more and more every year. So if you're developing during those years that it's increasing, then you have a much better understanding of it than someone who already has a fully formed, prefrontal cortex. So I think it has a lot to do with developing the developing brain with technology. It really makes me, at least, too, embrace it a lot more. And kind of going back to what you're saying about, we have all these things with technology looking to the future that could be scary, right? Like something that could facilitate mind control. But I just see that if we create the proper framework moving into the future, we can prevent things like that or can counteract them. So a good example is cell phone addiction. I don't have the statistics on this, but I think if you ask anybody, they can say to some degree they're addicted to their phone if they're around the age group that I'm in. And I always saw that as the fault of the technology itself. This is something wrong with this. This is horrible. Someone should have thought of this. But as technology progresses, now we have something on our phones that help us limit our consumption of our screen time and things like that. So, if there's something that would try to read your brainwaves, maybe we would come up with something that would block people from reading your brainwaves. Like, I kind of see it in that way, where I'm a bit more, enthusiastic, not enthusiastic, I guess, just more positive. Try to look at the bright side of things, because this is the world I'm going to live in. And I'm trying not to move into the future being afraid.
That seems emotionally healthy. I hear you. I mean, I guess, for your example, and again, not being devil's advocate, it's just your film is so thought-provoking. I'm sure a lot of people watching are going to be having these conversations with people, with whom they shared the experience of watching it. But I guess I would say, there is a qualitative difference in my mind between tools that allow people to communicate over long distances because their free will is involved, right? They opt into that phone call. They opt into that, radio wave, turning that dial, turning it on, receiving it, right? Their free will is engaged. And and they set the limit on their privacy too, right? They can stop it from surveilling what goes on in their living room, if they turn off the radio, or, before there was surveillance from radios, for instance. As opposed to, my phone has veered, I feel. I don't know if you're still there, Claire, but I'll keep talking. There we are. My phone has, for instance, I was just trying to access my medical records from NYU Langone, and the app prompted me to enter my vaccination status before it would allow me to proceed to get my x-rays, which I really needed. So at that point, the technology that had been designed in the past to serve humanity is really flipped and is treating humanity as a kind of host on which it's feeding, for the data, and intruding, I would say, entering my private space, giving me no free will about my private space, my privacy, what I want to share. So to me, those are really big differences. Like, the former definitely empowers people, I feel, and the latter doesn't. I don't want Elon Musk harvesting anything, that I don't affirmatively opt in for him to harvest. And I guess I especially say this as someone who runs a tech company, because it's so easy to lure people, like so many apps and so many businesses like Airbnb, for instance, or One Medical, are these bright, shiny, sparkly businesses that lure you into signing up. And then they just harvest your privacy, your data, your thoughts, your moods, your emotions, your illnesses, your fears, your anxieties, your conversations with your loved ones. So that does really worry me. And I guess what I'm interested in for you as a filmmaker is that I feel like when you first started the journey of this particular film, you were quite apprehensive about transhumanism, and at the end you did seem more enthusiastic or more accepting and hopeful. What changed in the process? What did you learn that led to that evolution, if I've got it right?
Yeah, I think it's not so much that any of the information I believed in before, any of the beliefs I had before really went away. It's that I completed the picture of what technology is for me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I had all these bad pieces, but I never acknowledged all these good pieces of it.
Interesting.
Now, this is something talking about moving forward for part 2, which we can just discuss kind of lightly. Joe Allen has some really great pointers that he gave me, and I want to break these down and really talk about it in the next piece that I do on this. Because he basically points out we basically need he's going to kill me for butchering this if I do, but I'll try. We're going to need a constitution of sorts, strictly just for the digital world. So your right to privacy, right? Your right to your ownership of data. What does that look like?
Yeah.
He talks about if we want to move forward positively, then we need to have a greater distribution, right? We don't need it just to be Apple and Google that owns everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then even beyond that, going into neurological rights, right? So even if we can create technologies like that, does someone have the right to read your mind or your brain?
Yeah.
And the list goes on. And so that's something we're going to be discussing moving forward is, okay, what kind of world can we live in and move forward into if we are making sure that we have all these points in place that will protect us proactively? Because I think what we've seen is a lag in protection. And now everyone's realizing, oh my gosh, this is a big issue, like especially digital media and everything being switched over digitally so quickly. But now with the knowledge and the wisdom that we have from the past 30 years, with the internet, I think that we kind of have a better idea of what's moving forward. And that's why I want to be having conversations about artificial intelligence.
Right.
I don't want to be afraid of it, because regardless of what I believe, it's going to be a part of our everyday lives. Like, I want to find these things, use them to my advantage, yet make sure we have points in place that protect us moving forward.
Interesting. Well, I love that idea of a constitution in relationship to digital technology. I think it's a really great idea, and I hope you do get into it in
Yes.
part 2. I'm excited that there's going to be a part 2. What are some of the things, I know we're closing in on the end of our time. What are some of the things you want to make sure the audience is aware of, or of which the audience is aware? My dad, the English professor, would want me to be sure to say it like that. You know, as they think about what you've done and as they anticipate part 2.
That I've had such a fun time.
Did you?
For the first time in my life, truly just having a blast with making a documentary piece. I think they were always so heavy to me, as I discussed. Piece I did in the past. I think that they were so necessary, but that I've really been enjoying just being able to explore my voice and my vision as a artist, and praying and just saying to God, you know, what is my purpose? What do you want me to make? And then making that. And moving forward, I just want to continue to be better at that, and getting in tune with my artistic voice. And I feel like in this piece, it truly was like me for the first time stepping open and saying, like, this is my family. Like, I come from a family in Mississippi, and we didn't have much growing up, and all these things that, you know, I might have been afraid to say before. I feel very empowered in my voice to talk about now. And even some of the work that I've done in the past, and the sadness that's around it, the trauma that was around, you know, watching people's stories that were injured by certain things, that they would, that I would feel empowered, and that I help tell their stories, and that I carry them with me. So it's all that journey as an artist.
So exciting. And when can people anticipate part 2? I guess you'll have about a month to produce it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll try to get it to you guys as soon as possible. And also, we're going to be touching on central bank digital currencies in the next piece as well. So we have some exciting interviews that will be included, and hopefully as much in-person stuff as we can get. But yeah, I'm just thankful for the opportunity, and thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so honored to have you, Claire Dooley. I hope everyone who's watching, you know, this is not the kind of film you just watch once. You want to digest it. You want to think about it. You may want to, you know, rewatch some parts of it. It's so thought-provoking. And I guess the last thing I would just say, as someone who loves shining a spotlight on brilliant young artists, the way your visual and the kind of rhythm of your visual poetry, the way it's evolving, and just how beautiful this piece is aesthetically, and how the music of the images corresponds with the way you're telling the story. To me, it's just, you know, such an amazing kind of high point in your work that I've, you know, followed, as you know, avidly ever since I got to know you and your work. So there will be many comments in the future. We're going to post this on DailyClout. It's going to be on all of our socials, and we'll keep talking about it. We'll keep sharing it. We'll keep the conversation going. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Share it with your friends, share it with your family. You don't have to, you know, agree or disagree with Claire. You get to say whatever you want about this piece, and we welcome your comments. We welcome your support. Please continue to be members or become a member of DailyClout, so we can keep bringing you, you know, actual journalism and actual art, unmediated, uncorporatized, you know, no one's agenda, just the vision of the artist or the truth uncovered by the reporter. Naomi Wolf, and this has been Claire Dooley. And where can people find the movie going forward, Claire?
You can find the movie going forward on YouTube. I think I'm a sub-channel under DailyClout, so if you just go there, you can find it. You can also find it on the DailyClout website.
And where do people find you, Claire? What's your socials?
Yeah, my email, or sorry, my website is
sure. Why not?
Yeah, why not? It's good. ClaireDooley.co. So Claire Dooley, .co. And I have a mailing list and things like that. You guys can go and sign up for. And I would love to hear any feedback that you have in the comment box at the bottom of the website.
Yeah, you guys have got to follow and support this amazing talent. Claire, thank you so much. Many more conversations in the future. We're honored to have been at this screening. And, you know, what an amazing night. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Claire. We'll sign off now, but we'll come back and have more conversations about it very soon. Take care. Thank you. Bye.